Nanda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Gopinath Shri Radhe, Jaya Radha Gopinath Shri Radhe, Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Guru Deva 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 Jaya Guru Deva. Jai Nityalila Pravishna Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Ashtotra Shada Shri Srimad Bhaya Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nityalila Pravishna Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Ashtotra Shada Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nityalila Pravishna Om Vishnupada Paramahansa Parivrajacharya Ashtotra Shada Shri Srimad Jai Nityalila Pravishta Om Vishnupada Srila Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Nityalila Pravishna Om Vishnupada Srila Sachidananda Bhaktivinod Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Nityalila Pravishna Om Vishnupada Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki. Shri Gauriya Vaishnav Guru Varga Ki Jai. Shri Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Krishnas Kaviraj Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Caitanya Caritamrita Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All glories the assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All glories assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All glories Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namo Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Oh, sorry. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratvishe Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so welcome back to Caitanya Caritamrita class. Today we're going to be continuing with the Rai Ramananda Samvad. We're only just reaching the climax of the first question, so we're still going through. It does take a while to get through the Rai Ramananda Samvad, and appropriately so, because it is, again, such a nectarian, essential heart in many ways to the Caitanya Caritamrita. It can be said that in the same way that the Bhagavad Gita can be said to be the heart of the Mahabharata, in the same way the Rai Ramananda Samvad can be the heart of the Caitanya Caritamrita. So, it's a rather long and very deep chapter. When I was speaking with His Grace Ghanashyam Govinda Prabhu about, I was asking him a little bit about what direction to take the Caitanya Caritamrita classes in, and Prabhu, he very nicely, he said, well, the Rai Ramananda Samvad is like an infinite ocean. You can keep reading it, and you'll keep on churning out various realizations, various ideas, various different philosophical conclusions. So, this chapter, again, is very deep. But we're plodding through. We could go even longer and we could go much shorter, but no matter what length we take, we will never begin to exhaust its infinite depth and nectar. So, just to give a slight framing, because it has been a few days since we had the last Caitanya Caritamrita class, we were discussing, again, Mahaprabhu, he has asked Rai Ramananda, what is the ultimate goal of life? And Rai Ramananda, he's speaking various answers, and each one Mahaprabhu he's not so satisfied with. Initially, he's very unsatisfied. Eho bahyo, age koho. This is external. Speak something deeper. And those are the things like varnashram, offering up the results of one's fruitive activities to Krishna. All of these things, they're external. Sarva dharman parityaja, abandoning all material dharma. All these things are seen as external to what devotion is. So then we have the next level then, which Mahaprabhu, he then said, okay, eho hoi, this is it. This is all right. This is it. This is devotion. But it is not exactly the full extent of it. This is the beginning deliberation, but this is not only is this not the height of devotion, not only is this all that devotion can be, but it is also not the ultimate goal of life. So we then hear the various levels, and then it began with a general conception of devotion, and then it went on to the highest conception of devotion, prema bhakti. And even this though, Mahaprabhu kept on saying, Eho hoi, age ko ho ar. This is it, but speak some more. Then, after the discussion of prema bhakti, there was some flavor needed. And then Ramananda Rai, he spoke of dasya prem, spontaneous devotional service in the mood of a servant. And at this point, Mahaprabhu, he says, Eho hoi, this is still all right, but kichu age ar, speak a tiny bit more. Speak something a tiny bit more. You're nearly there. And then we heard of Sakhya Ras, and at which point Mahaprabhu says, Eho uttam, this is it. This is the highest thing you are speaking of. This right now, this is very satisfactory. However, then what does he say? Age ko ho ar, speak something more. You've spoken of this, but there's still something beyond. And then we heard of Vatsalya prem, spontaneous devotional service done on the platform of the in the flavor of the loving parent. And it was at that we reached in the last Caitanya Caritamrita class, and then we were speaking something of the pramanas that were evoked. And then I was speaking of the pastime, which very much embodies the strength of this Vatsalya. And the pastime we were speaking of was the very, very famous Damodar pastime, the Damodar Lila, in which Mother Yashoda binds Lord Krishna. And so we were speaking of it. We were speaking again of some considerations, some elaborations, which Sri Harisuri, the great Acharya and the great commentator on the glories of the Vraja Lila in particular. He stopped commenting once Krishna with Akrura leaves Vrindavan. So we were speaking about some of the elaborations, some of the commentarial illuminations with which he contributes to this pastime. And then we were hearing how Krishna, very angry, he bit his lips and his eyes became red in rage. Again, because he could not beat the ground, so he beat. Instead, he bit down on his lip. Because he is Krishna. He has come in order to liberate the earth, in order to save the earth from the overburden of the various demonic kings. How could he then beat the earth? So instead, he bit his lip. So like this, he was very angry. And then he took up a piece of stone and he broke the butter pot. And then Srila Prabhupada, he writes, he took the butter out of it, and with false tears in his eyes, he began to eat the butter in a secluded place. With tears going down, and false tears, however, still tears nevertheless. The tears were coming down. It said, one eye, because of the kajal. We know Mother Yashoda, she decorates Krishna's face with kajal. So one eye, it really picked up that color and it went down black. And the other eye, the tears that were flowing out, did not so much pick up the color. And therefore that eye, the tears ran out clearly. And it said, just in the same, that the Ganga and the Jamuna, they're both, one is blackish, we know, and the other one is clear. So in this way, the Ganga and the Jamuna, they were flowing down Krishna's face. And flowing down like this, they flowed down until they met at his navel. And there at the navel is the spot where all three of the sacred rivers, they all meet. In Allahabad, we know there's the famous point at which they all intersect. So that place, it is said, they all came again at the point of Krishna's tears. However, those tears will soon become real. We'll speak about that soon, but Sanatana Goswami gives a very wonderful description of Krishna's tears in this pastime. So in the meantime, Mother Yashoda, she returned to the churning place after setting the overflowing milk pan in order. She saw the broken pot in which the churning yogurt had been kept. Since she could not find her boy, she concluded that the broken pot was his work. She smiled as she thought, "The child is very clever. After breaking the pot, he has left this place, fearing punishment. And here we see, again, the glories of that Vatsalya Prem. That Krishna, the Krishna who the whole world can be conquered by, he runs away with fear of his mother's punishment. And it is not just Krishna that runs away in the presence of the Vatsalya Prem, in the presence of the fear, in the presence of Mother Jashoda, willing, out of love, not out of anger, but out of an anger inspired by the undergirding principle of her divine love. It is not just Krishna who runs away from this, but also Krishna's Aishvarya, the opulence of Krishna as God, the opulence of Krishna as ruler of the universe, the opulence of Krishna, it runs away, just as Krishna runs away. And so it runs far, far away, and then we find Krishna, sweet, sweet Madhurya Krishna. And then after she sought all over, she found her son sitting on a big wooden grinding mortar, which was kept upside down. He was taking butter from a pot which was hanging from the ceiling on a swing, and he was feeding it to the monkeys. It said here that Krishna, after crying, he cleaned his ears. He was clearing away the tears from his eyes. Why? Because kajal is like bad reputation. It is like a bad reputation that is coming over all of the sun and moon dynasties. And because of this, he is covering it away. He is saying because the sun and the moon are Krishna's eyes. So Krishna, he's very upset hearing. He's very upset, so he covers away the kajal. There's some bad reputation now. Mother Jashoda, she's looking, and soon Mother Jashoda, she will accuse. And with this accusation, Krishna, he cannot bear it. He cannot bear that someone in either of these dynasties can be considered a thief. So he covers away the kajal of the bad influence away from the sun and the moon. So anyway, so she sees him doing like this. And Krishna, Krishna can see in all the directions. However, Mother Jashoda, she very silently approaches him and she nearly captures him. However, Krishna, at this moment, he can see in all directions. And even though she gets closer than any other personality ever could, still Krishna realizes and he begins to flee in fear. And Mother Jashoda, she chased him, Srila Prabhupada writes, to all corners, trying to capture the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who was never approached even by the meditations of great yogis. In other words, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who was never caught by the yogis and speculators, was playing just like a little child for such a great devotee as Mother Jashoda. Mother Jashoda, however, could not easily catch the fast-running child because of her thin waist and heavy body. Still, she tried to follow him as fast as possible. Her hair loosened, and the flowers in her hair fell to the ground. Although she was tired, she somehow reached her naughty child and captured him. When he was caught, Krishna was almost on the point of crying. He smeared his hands over his eyes, which were anointed with black cosmetics. The child saw his mother's face while she stood over him, and his eyes became restless from fear. So like this we see, he's wiping away that cosmetic away. He's thinking, now my mother has found me. And now with this, again, this great bad reputation will fall upon these dynasties. So I'm rubbing it away. No bad name shall fall upon my family heritage. And then what do we hear? His eyes became restless from fear. Now no more were those tears coming from a false nature. No longer are they crocodile tears. No longer are these false tears. Sanatana Goswami, when he describes the nature of the Damodarashtakam, he speaks and he says that when we hear that Krishna is rubbing his eyes with tears, there are two things being meant. Initially, it means that Krishna, he is rubbing his eyes and he's producing crocodile tears. He's producing fake tears in order to get the sympathy, in order to get the mercy from Mother Jashoda. In order to get sympathy, he's producing fake tears. By rubbing his ears, he's hoping to produce tears. And then the maternal pangs of his mother will come out and maybe he will have some mercy. However, when he sees the stick and he realizes that well, no, this trick isn't going to work this time, then the real tears start coming out, and then he is afraid. And then the rubbing in the eyes is in order to get the tears out of his eyes so that he may run away with clear vision. And so like this, Krishna, he is rubbing his eyes. And Mother Jashoda, she could understand that Krishna was unnecessarily afraid, and for his benefit, she wanted to allay his fears. Being the topmost well-wisher of her child, Mother Jashoda thought, if the child is too fearful of me, I don't know what will happen to him. Mother Jashoda then threw away her stick. So she was thinking, I don't want to be one of those terrible mothers, who's too heavy on the child. Always punishing the child and being so violent even with the child. I don't want to get, I don't want to get in trouble with the child protective services or so on and so forth. I can't be a person like this. And if I'm a mother who rules through fear and not through love, this is not appropriate. So she thinks, no, I won't do this. And so she throws the stick away. However, she needs to punish him. On the other hand, she can't be a mother who is too lax. Who's too lax in having no discipline. In the Bible it says, he that spareth the rod hateth the child. And so she thought, I must punish him somehow. And so then she thought to bind his hands with some rope. She did not know it, but it was actually impossible for her to bind the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Again, she did not know it. Why? Because the defining nature of these rasas, starting with Sakya Ras, is that they have the level of intimacy, where they sort of forget that Krishna is God. Mother Jashoda was thinking that Krishna was her tiny child. She did not know that the child had no limitation. There is no inside or outside of him, no beginning or end. He is unlimited and all-pervading. Indeed, he is himself the whole cosmic manifestation. Still, Mother Jashoda was thinking of her as her child, thinking of Krishna as her child. Although he is beyond the reach of all senses, she endeavored to bind him with a wooden grinding mortar. But when she tried to bind him, she found that the rope she was using was too short, by 2 inches. She gathered more ropes from the house and added to it, but still she found some shortage. In this way, she connected all the ropes available at home. But when the final rope was added, she saw that the rope was still 2 inches too short. Mother Jashoda was smiling, but she was astonished. How was it happening? And so, she was trying like this. And in fact, when she tried to capture Krishna, she had all of these questions that she was chastising him with. And she was saying, who broke the pot? And Krishna, he responded, not lies, but not exactly the truth either. And Mother Jashoda very much felt that they were lies, because as was being described by Srila Prabhupada here, she is forgetting that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So she asks, who broke the pot? And Krishna says, well, the Paramatma oversees all things. So the Paramatma broke the pot. Mother Jashoda says, oh, what nonsense. The Paramatma. It was you, Krishna, who broke the pot. And then she said, who is feeding all these monkeys? That which I was working so hard to make. And then Krishna said, he who has created all these monkeys, he is feeding the monkeys. Mother Jashoda is saying, oh yeah, continuing that Paramatma line, continuing referring to yourself as Bhagavan, as if it is not Bhagavan who is feeding all these monkeys, it is you, my tiny child, the little rascal. And then she says, I'm not believing any of these lies. You, Krishna, you are a thief. And then Krishna says, hey, I'm a thief? There are no thieves in my father's family. Again, he was worried. He was wiping away the bad reputation that was falling upon the Sun and Moon dynasties. And he's saying, in my family's line, there is no thief. In my father's line, there is no thief. Maybe in your father's line there is a thief, but definitely not in my father's line. And like this, Mother Jashoda, she becomes very angry. Of course, a very sweet anger arising from her prem. And like this, she begins to tie him up. And so tying him up, she ties up like this. And then we will conclude the pastime. The rest is beyond the description that I intended to make. But we know how this pastime goes. Then she keeps on going, keeps on going. However, at one point, Krishna, he appreciates the hard labor of his mother. He appreciates all that she has done. And she keeps on going, because why? Because he is reciprocating. Ye yatha mam prapadyante. The mood of his mother, he is reciprocating back to her. And so that submission, that surrender with which she serves Krishna with, Krishna, he responds in turn the same way. And so then, Mother Jashoda, eventually she's able to tie the ropes together. Eventually she's able to bind Krishna. But we must take note, it is not, sometimes we say that the two fingers, they are mercy and they are endeavor. These two things we need to bind Krishna. And this is correct. This is true. But we must note what comes before then. Krishna's heart melting. Krishna's heart melting at seeing what? Not just the endeavor of his devotee. This is one way to understand it. But the other is that his heart melted upon being bound already by the Vatsalya Prem of his mother. This is the power of the Vatsalya Prem. This is the power of these specific types of Krishna Prema, that they can bind Krishna even before the rope is tied. Already Krishna was bound by his mother's love. Only then it was expressed by her finally being able to tie the rope around Krishna and then tie him up. And we know then the two trees, they get liberated by Krishna. He carries through and he uproots the trees, and from them we know Nalakuvera and Manigriva, the two sons of Kuvera, they both become liberated by this. And there's one other tiny detail. Why did Krishna do this? Why did Krishna decide to wait until this moment? Surely Krishna knows. At every moment Krishna knows that those two trees were the two brothers. However, it's said, of course in one sense, it is just Lila. We cannot describe, we cannot explain away Lila. But on the other hand, the reason why is because Krishna now finally, he had been bound up. Now Krishna had been bound up. Now he experienced what bondage is like. Krishna, he does not know what the bondage of material life, what the bondage of curse is like. He is of curses alike. He is beyond all of it. He is beyond all of its domain. However, Krishna, now he has experienced what it is like to be bound up. And therefore, Krishna, what did he do? Now he had the empathy to realize, oh, now I realize what bad situation these poor guys are in. So, with that, he then decided, okay, I will liberate them. I will break the trees, and then I will free them from their bondage. Now that I am understanding, now that I am aware of how this bondage works. And so like that, Krishna, he liberates them. Maybe at a later time we can discuss more of the Damodar pastime. But for now, we have heard all that we have heard. Not all that we need to hear. We always need to hear Krishna Katha. But I've spoken what I wanted to speak of to make the point that Vatsalya Prem conquers Krishna. And so this pastime in particular speaks of the glories of Vatsalya Prem. So then, however, Mahaprabhu, he hears this very, very high thing. And we have spoken of the glories of this high thing. Very opulent, very great. However, Mahaprabhu, what does he say? He says, Eho Uttam. He is agreeing, this is very great, this is very nice. Srila Prabhupada says, your statements are certainly getting better and better, one after the other. However, he says, Age koho ar. But surpassing all of them is another transcendental mellow. And you can speak of that as the most sublime. Here now we are hearing the most sublime, the highest goal of life, the highest element of Krishna Prem. And what is that? Ramananda Rai, he then replied, conjugal attachment for Krishna is the topmost position in love of Godhead. And this time, Mahaprabhu, we will hear soon, after we quickly go through, we won't go in as much detail into the pramanas and the pastimes that are quoted as we normally do. However, we will still take some time because there is still a lot that is spoken by Ramananda Rai on this topic. But after we get through all of that, we will hear that Mahaprabhu, he is very happy with this. And we will hear exactly the word he uses to refer to this goal of life. But this is it. This is the topmost goal of life. Finally, after hearing so many things, we have finally reached the point where Mahaprabhu, he is saying, yes, this is it. This is the highest goal of life. And what is that highest goal of life? Kanta prem shurbo shadhoshar. Kanta prem, loving service in the romantic mellow. So, and Srila Prabhupada, he speaks already of a very nice summary of the different levels which we have gone through. However, Ramananda Rai, he also will elaborate on these. So, Srila Prabhupada, he writes very, very nicely. What does he say? He says, in general, love of Godhead is devoid of the intimacy of ownership. In the case of love and servitude, there is a want of confidence. There is a want of increased affection in fraternal relationship. And even when this affection increases in the parental relationship, there's nonetheless a want for complete freedom. However, when one becomes a conjugal lover of Krishna, everything lacking in the other relationships is completely manifest. Love of Godhead lacks nothing in the conjugal stage. The summary of this verse is that parental love of Godhead is certainly higher than fraternal love, and that conjugal love is higher yet. It was when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu requested Ramananda Rai to go further than that, that he came to the point of the conjugal relationship, which is the highest perfectional stage of transcendental love. So at this level, we are hearing of the glories of the conjugal attachment of Krishna. However, these glories are very, very high, not only in that they are the highest goal of life, but also that they are very, very elevated. And so discussions of this we will not go into too much depth in. One should not rush in, especially in Madhya Lila in general. They should be delivered properly. But especially when one speaks of the Madhurya Lila, of the Madhurya Rasa, these things are not to be discussed in too much depth. So we will not be going so strongly, verse by verse, in the same manner which we have been going before. But we will speak vaguely of the general direction. Maybe we'll come back to these verses, but first we will discuss that there has been a very nice summary being given of the various rasas which we have heard by Ramananda Rai. And he says, Krishna praptir upay bohu bidha hoy. Krishna prapti taro tommo bahutto achhoy. There are various means and processes by which one may attain the favor of Lord Krishna. All those transcendental processes will be studied from the viewpoint of comparative importance. So here we're going to hear a general hierarchy, a general development. And he begins, Kintu, nevertheless, but, Kintu jar je rosho she shorbottommo, totoshto hunna bicharile, ache toro tomo. It is true that whatever relationship a particular devotee has with the Lord is the best for him. Still, when we study all the different methods from a neutral position, we can understand that there are higher and lower degrees of love. And this verse here is very, very important, because it speaks of the general satisfaction which we find in the higher things. We should not understand that because of this, the joy that is necessary, that is experienced, is higher for a gopi or someone in Madhurya Ras than it is for a gopa or for a parent. Actually, whatever mood is there, whatever attitude is there, This is the best for the individual devotee. Each devotee has a different mood, a specific mood, which is given by the spiritual master. And there is one mood which is most ecstatic. And this is very personal, very individual to each devotee. Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Jaiva Dharma, he in fact clarifies this. And he says that if one is feeling they're in a mood and then their mood is not proper, obviously only under the spiritual master's guidance, it can be adjusted, it can be changed. So it is very much that there is a particular mood for each devotee. And so, whatever relationship that is, whatever mood that is, this is the best for that devotee. It is not that we should think, therefore, because one is higher than the other, therefore, actually the Gopal should hanker to become gopis. Or that Mother Jashoda, in actuality, she would enjoy it more if she was a gopi. This is not true. For each perfected soul, they are enjoying infinitely so. And to adjust would not be proper for them. It is not their proper swarup. It is not their proper nature. Each devotee is perfectly ecstatic in whatever position is best for him. So it is not that one should have an anxiety that, oh no, you know, if one goes back home back to Godhead and the Vatsalya rasa, oh, they're not that ecstatic, they're missing out on so much. This is not the proper way. Instead, for each devotee, they are constantly ecstatic. One may ask, however, we hear of pastimes of Lakshmi desiring to enter into the Ras Lila. We hear of pastimes like that and we may get confused. Well, here's an example of somebody seeming to hanker for something greater. But we must understand that A, Lakshmi was not given this. It would be impossible for her to. And the reason why is maybe a little confidential, so we will not discuss in too much depth here. But in general, she was not having the right sacrifices ready in order to fully taste that mood. And in order for her to adjust, in order to taste that mood of being a gopi in the Ras Lila, she would have been so uncomfortable that she would not have been ecstatic in it. Each person in the spiritual realm is situated in exactly the right mood for them. Because this is what is higher in this mood. We were talking about how Vatsalya then has that emotion of wanting to take care of the beloved. However, the unique element of the Kanta Prem is that one does not care for any ideas of what is right or what is wrong. Love comes spontaneously, in a sense, not even for the idea that I should do this. A mother must take care of the child. But the romantic lover is under no obligation to love the beloved. So there is a degree of not letting go of truly any obligation, which very much defines this. We could go in more depth, and I was really beating around the bush and defining that symptom. However, as we have said before, these things are very elevated and must not be delved into in too much depth. And along this line of thought, Srila Prabhupada writes very sweetly in his purport on this text that in this regard, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that this verse does not advocate the whimsical invention of some methods of love of Godhead. Such inventions cannot be accepted as topmost. So we are hearing here that this is very much reinforcing the idea that we must understand things objectively. There is a neutral position. We cannot merely say, oh, this is just the path of the individual devotee. We must understand that there is an objective vision, however. Even if all of them are equally ecstatic, there is an objective point. And that is the point of Shastra, which is why, again, Mahaprabhu has said, tell me these things according to the Shastric version. Tell me these things with pramana from Shabda Brahman. Tell me these things according to the scriptural ways, because there is an objective standard by which we understand these subjective experiences of infinite ecstasy. And so, Srila Prabhupada, he says, there are so many invented devotional attitudes which simply create disturbances in the transcendental realm. If a person is overly addicted to family life, takes to Srimad Bhagavatam, if a person who is overly addicted to family life takes to Srimad Bhagavatam or Krishna consciousness to earn a livelihood, his activity is certainly offensive. And Srila Prabhupada, he lists many different types of speculative understandings. And then he lists again the upper sampradayas, which we discussed so long ago now in the Caitanya Caritamrita classes. So their version is not very proper. And the purport in presenting this verse necessitates explaining the comparative positions of the transcendental mellows, or the rasas. So to understand the various degrees, and to understand that there is a reason with it, there is an objective platform, therefore there is being a description given of the hierarchy or of the ranking of these mellows, even if they are all equally ecstatic in one sense and equally worshipable. It is not that then we should worship some more than others, not that Mother Jashoda is any less worshipable than the gopis. And so, it is said that increasing love is experienced in various tastes, one above another. But that love which has the highest taste in the gradual succession of desires manifests itself in the form of conjugal love. There is a gradual order of improvement in transcendental mellows from the initial ones to the later ones. In each subsequent mellow, the qualities of the previous mellows are manifested, counting from 2, then 3, and up to the point of 5 complete qualities. Purbo purbo rosher guno pore pore hoye. Dui tin gono ne poncho poronto baroe. So, we must understand that each rasa, the reason why one is put higher than the other, by an objective standard, is because it includes all the glories of the previous one, all the qualities of the previous one, plus an extra quality. And then, gunadhikke shadadhikyo bore bare proti roshe. Shanto dasho shokho bacholer guno modhurete boishe. As the qualities increase, so the taste also increases in each and every mellow. Therefore the qualities found in Shantaras, Dasyaras, Sakhyaras, and Vatsalyaras are all manifested in conjugal love, Madhuryaras. Akashadiro gunno jain poro poro bhute dui teen krome bare poncho prithibite. The qualities in the material elements, sky, air, fire, water, and earth, increase one after another by a gradual process of 1, 2, and 3. And at the last stage, in the element earth, all 5 qualities are completely visible. So in the same way, we know originally there is just sky. And then from sky there is air. And in air we can there is almost form. And then in fire we can see, and in water we can taste, and earth there is fragrance. There's all these various elements. There are all these various qualities and they build on each other. Water we can taste, we can see, we can engage with all the senses. Water we can do all these things, but we cannot have the fragrance of it. We cannot smell it. We cannot smell water. Water is, in a sense, smellless. All of the smells in water come from the mixture of various earths inside it. But earth, we can do all the things that we can do with water, but we can do one more. We can smell it. In the same way, earth is to the elements what Madhurya Ras is to the rasas. Because it includes the qualities of all that came before it. And then, Puripurno Krishna Prapti e prema hoite, e premar bosho Krishna kohe bhagavote. In Srimad Bhagavatam, what does it say? Complete attainment of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna is made possible by love of Godhead, specifically in Madhurya Ras. Lord Krishna is indeed captivated by this standard of love. So, because of this, we understand these various qualities, they are said, and they are described further on, a bit more, in a bit deeper depth, later on in the teachings to Sanatana Goswami. And here we begin to hear of what those qualities are. And I will save those qualities for later in that discussion. However, I've already touched upon them in the speaking of Shantaras being very much nishtha, And then furthermore, Sakya Ras has all these extra qualities of Sakya and then intimacy. There's Mamata. There is the sense of mine in Dasya Ras. Like this, we will hear all sorts of things. And Srila Prabhupada, he mentions them. He mentions them in a purport. Because he speaks of the mellows. However, we will come to that later on in the Caitanya Caritamrita. So now we will come back to the Shabda Brahman, which is glorifying this Madhurya Ras. And two texts are quoted, actually in the reverse order. So the first text, which is spoken by Uddhav, this text was spoken later on in Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam. And the second one, this one is not from Uddhav, it is spoken in the Ras Lila, and that is happening well before Uddhav has arrived to bring his message. So we will speak quickly about these two shloks, and then we will conclude for today. And then tomorrow we will continue the brief overview of Madhurya Ras, and then we will continue with the further questions. We will then hear the next few questions. In the Rai Ramananda Samvad, we will hear the second question, which is also very esoteric, very elevated, but we can hear at least some of the less confidential topics within it. So, what is the Shabda Brahman that is quoted? Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, text 47, chapter 47, text 60 is quoted. And what does it say? Nayang Shriyonga Unnitanta Rate Prasadaha Svaryoshitam Nalina Gandharucham Kutonyaha Rasotsave Sya Bhuja Danda Grihita Kantha Labdha Shisham Ya Udagad Vrajasundarinam. When Lord Sri Krishna was dancing with the gopis in the Ras Lila, the gopis were embraced around the neck by the Lord's arms. This transcendental favor was never bestowed upon the goddess of fortune or the other consorts in the spiritual world, nor was such a thing ever imagined by the most beautiful girls in the heavenly planets, girls whose bodily luster and aroma resemble the beauty and fragrance of lotus flowers. And what to speak of worldly women who may be very, very beautiful according to material estimation. So this is the glorification that Uddhav is speaking. We spoke again a long time ago about the nature of Uddhav's visit to Vrindavan, how Uddhav saw Vrindavan, how Uddhav took it in, and while meditating upon it, he realized the inadequacy of, in comparison, not that again, as Rai Ramananda has said, that all devotees in the spiritual world, they are infinitely satisfied, not so much the inadequacy in joy or in perfection, but in comparison to the glories that is found in Vraja Bhakti, Vraja Prem. So commenting upon this, after seeing it, he speaks this glorification. We know Uddhav later, he prayed to become a blade of grass in Vrindavan, to take this form. If only he could take that form, to take the dust of the lotus feet of the gopis. If only he could take this form, he would be happy. And we know his request was very much fulfilled. And so, however, we're hearing of this very high thing, this glorification of a very high thing that, again, I said, rather elevated. We're not going to delve into too much, but this text is very interesting because it's speaking of how high and how elevated, and therefore how beyond the scope of our understanding the gopis are. Because when Lord Krishna was dancing with them in the Ras Lila, they were given a position which was not even given to Lakshmi, not even to the goddesses of fortune or the other consorts in the spiritual world. And in fact, even the most beautiful girls in the heavenly planets, they could not even imagine this. So what Uddhav is doing, he's starting from the highest platform, and he's saying even below, even slightly below, they were not able to reach this. And even those elevated people, even below them, these elevated people were not able to reach this. And then even these elevated people were not able to reach this. What then to speak of people on the material platform so much lower He's walking through every step in order to emphasize the distance that is walked. Between the distance, between the most beautiful of worldly women and the understanding of the gopis. And the point I'm making here is not so much to speak of the Ras Lila, which we really should not speak of in such open venues, but rather to speak of the disqualification of speaking of the Ras Lila and of the nature of the gopis. Because we are so used to seeing material women. Actually, forget about comparing those of the spiritual world. It is said that the beauty of a woman, the most beautiful woman on our planet, the most beautiful woman on our planet looks like a frog compared to the beauty of the women in the heavenly planets, which is still in the material world. Forget about going to the spiritual domain. But we are so used to these standards. We are so used to seeing. We're so used to seeing bodies composed of the three modes of material nature. And so, being so familiar with these standards of beauty, what does Srila Prabhupada say? Although they may be very beautiful according to material estimation, we are so used to that material estimation. How many people can really see material beauty and see it only in spiritual terms? See that material beauty and only think this should be turned on to Krishna. This should be given away. This should be given off to Krishna. This beauty exists only to serve Krishna. No other point. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would say this. It is not that the true brahmachari sees the beauty of a woman and says, yuck. Actually, the true brahmachari sees it and feels no desire to enjoy it. Instead, he says, this beauty is for Krishna to enjoy, not for me. But how many of people are on that platform? And until you are on that platform, how can you appreciate the beauty of these gopis? How can you, when you're so used to identifying with and appreciating the nature of bodies composed of these three modes of material nature? How can we even begin to enter into that domain? Because if one does, one will confuse themselves. And they'll confuse themselves and they'll think that these gopis are just normal girls. But they are very, very far from normal. Even the goddess of fortune, even Lakshmi herself, she cannot attain what they have obtained. But because we are so used to seeing other conceptions of what beauty is, other conceptions of what women are, we will interpolate and bring in our conception, and we will not be able to enter properly into the rasotsave, the rasa utsav, that festival of rasa. We will not be able to enter if we try to enter prematurely. We must have the ticket. This is the great festival, utsav. We must have the ticket to enter it. And the ticket is a genuine understanding of who we are. We need to have our seat assigned for us. If you go into the movie theater and you do not have a seat and it's all packed out, there will not be space for you. They will kick you out. In the same way, Guru, by the mercy of the Guru, one may have a seat in the theater to watch the film. Or one may have a ticket which gives them entryway into this festival, to watch this festival, and even to participate in this festival. But that qualification needs to be given. And for all those people who are infatuated, and so many are by the standards of very beautiful women who are worldly women, or of those women who are very much infatuated, or even infatuated at all, even if there's the slightest amount of impurity, this will not work. This will cause one to ruin the whole thing. So if there's even one thing, then one does not have the ticket of entrance. But by the Guru's mercy, we may be gifted such things. But again, those things are very far away. And the next verse that's quoted is itself from the Ras Lila. What is it? Tasam avir bhuch chaurihi smayamana mukham bhuja pitambara dharas ragvi sakshan manmatha. Suddenly, due to their feelings of separation, Lord Krishna appeared among the gopis dressed in yellow garments and wearing a flower garland. His lotus face was smiling, and he was directly attracting the mind of Cupid. So with this we hear, what? Manmatha. Manmatha, Manmatha. Krishna is captivating even Cupid. So we are hearing again the point. Even Cupid, which is speaking of material love sometimes. Material love, we know Cupid, he comes with his arrows and shoots. Pew, 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 and then suddenly people are infatuated. This person himself is attracted to Krishna. What can we speak of the elevated level of this love? What can we speak of the elevated level of such pastimes? We cannot speak much and we should not speak much. What then to try and dive into it? If even the Cupid, the nature of whose love is normally infatuating us, if even we cannot conquer or truly properly understand the nature of the love he gives us, to realize that it is Maya, how can we understand this elevated love? Again, we should understand the high nature of these things. So, like that, we understand that even Cupid himself, he is drawn away by this transcendental Cupid of Krishna. So, we will continue the description tomorrow. We will continue the description tomorrow of Rai Ramananda's final answer and the answer that Mahaprabhu finally accepts. We will continue that tomorrow, and then we will hopefully move on to the next question. We will only do a brief summary again because these are very elevated topics. And then, yes, we will hear the second question, which is very much elaborating on this topic, but which we will have to wait until tomorrow to discover. Shri Shri Rai Ramananda ki jai, Shri Krishna Caitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Rai Ramananda Samvad ki jai, Shri Krishna Das Kaviraj Thakur ki jai, Shri Caitanya Caritamrita ki jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol.